Hey there, we're Kirk and Lauren.
We bought a sailboat in Lake Michigan, traveled down the middle of the U.S. via the Mississippi, and sailed the Gulf of Mexico to the Bahamas and back.
We spent a decade paying off student debt
and figuring out how to financially live and work wherever we feel free.
Follow along as we share our struggles and triumphs, mishaps and adventures. The journey is the destination. Thanks so much for joining us. We're docked at a patron's house in Melbourne, Florida, making some upgrades to Soulianis before we continue our journey south.
I've wanted to do some more videos like this for a while. I want to talk a little bit about how sailing has taught me about life. I put a lot of pressure on myself to always make the right decision, do everything right, like get it right the first time. This is the result of a $400 mistake that I made. It looks like that. And I always think about surgeons and airplane pilots, other people that have really, really high stakes professions, and that they can't screw up. And I compare myself to them. There's a ton of what we do that is incredibly high stakes. Choosing a path through shallow areas with reef, we got to get it right or else the boat's going aground. And sometimes that can be life or death situation. But most of the time what we're doing, we don't have to get it right the first time. Oh shit, we didn't thin it. Sometimes you just need to walk down the wrong path for a little while to realize that it is the wrong path. And that's okay. Wait, what happened?
We're stuck at 275 degrees.
Yeah.
The flame is now yellow, which means it's probably not going to get any hotter. So we have to turn off the oven, take out the alcohol puck, refill it with alcohol, and then start the whole process over and maybe hope that we still have 100 degrees left in the oven by the time I get the new refilled puck in.
This is when the alcohol sucks.
This is when it sucks. I mean, it was kind of my fault. I took it out, I weighed the puck, and I was like, I only need to have these in for 10 minutes. Should have enough fuel. No, I don't. So.
Bummer.
This is my first attempt at, they're called tea biscuits, I guess. It's like a super simple way to make biscuits.
Specifically what I'm working on right now is our mast has been pumping on our boat since we bought it. I don't know how to make a pumping mast.
Doesn't it go like this?
Yeah, like the middle of it goes.
Yeah.
For a long time. We've tried all sorts of different rigging techniques to put a little bend in the mast, to make the mast rake backwards, to wrap a halyard around the mast. We even hoisted a fender up halfway up the mast one night when it was just really bad. And we've always struggled every time we've stepped and unstepped the mast, dealing with the mast chocks or the wedges that hold the mast in the deck collar. It just requires like tons of brute force, and like I'm always sweating and swearing, and like the crane operators are always kind of like, you know, tapping their wrists. Oh man, it feels like we just fought a battle. So like this is a thing that I've really wanted to fix for a while. So what we've come down to is we think the one possible solution we haven't tried yet is to remake the mast chocks.
Not to mention that it's probably not great on the rig.
Right. Metal fatigues from constant movement. And so our mast is way overbuilt. Like, we're not going to lose our mast. But the more that it pumps, the more it pulls on the rigging, the more it pulls on our chain plates. Like, it shudders the whole boat. And it's just really annoying. Like, we've lost so much sleep. And we're here at our patron's house, and he has an entire machine shop. And so I said, what an amazing opportunity. Yeah, we got to try and fix this. Let's create some new mast wedges. And so I had this idea in my head. Someone had given me a recommendation to use Starboard, and it was a professional rigger, and I thought, great, that sounds like a great idea. I love it. It won't rot. It's not going to compress, which will prevent any movement in the mast. We got some of our scrap starboard that we had laying around. And so I drew up what we needed. We went over to the shop and spent the entire afternoon making these mast wedges. We've got our port and starboard, our bow, and our stern.
We have our starboard made of starboard.
We have our starboard made of, we also have our port made of starboard. Up here, we have rubber. And so we think that there's just a tiny bit of movement here that is allowing the mast to shake back and forth, whereas these will allow none. And as long as we can keep the wedges up there, or down there, or however we end up putting them in, hopefully we can end the mast pumping saga. And it was clear immediately that they were not going to work. And so we went back this morning and tried to address some of the issues, and again, it just was clear almost immediately that we're not gonna fix this. These didn't work out so well. Long story short, the starboard wedges were a bad design choice. Maybe creating a collar would have worked. But the material was just too dense, and without any compression, they didn't stay put. I was also concerned they might create pressure points on the mast and deform it. Aside from minimizing movement at the partners, we were simultaneously hoping to induce more pre-bend in the mast. This would also reduce the tendency for the mast to pump in the wind, but we'll get more into this in an upcoming video. Suffice to say, we were back to the rubber chocks, which without a crane to assist in maneuvering the mast are nearly impossible to install.
Can you do the side one just for this?
We actually ended up using the starboard chocks we had made to help get the rubber ones back in.
So now we're just trying to create some space in the front so that we can get the bow wedge in, because that one's the most difficult.
Alright, so I'm going to go crank back on the winches a tiny bit.
Okay.
Tell me if you see any movement.
Alright. You're still about an inch away from hitting that starboard.
So that didn't work. We couldn't get the bow wedge in by pulling the mast aft. So now we're switching. We put the bow in first. Now we're pulling the mast forward, and we're gonna try to put in the stern chock last. This one has always been the easiest to put in whenever we've been stepping the mast. So I'm hoping this is gonna work.
Will you go down below and see if it makes it any easier?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Almost. Give me a sec. Alright, I'm ready. Do you think it's gonna work?
I don't know. It went in there way easier though. Let's hope so.
Up to this point, we had been using soapy water to lubricate the rubber wedges. Somehow we thought to try Still Glide, and lo and behold, it worked.
Go get in there, chef. Are you called a chef if you make...
No, I think you're called a baker.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So, not bad.
Yeah,
I might have overmixed them. It's my first attempt, and they rose. So I'll take that. Here, you want some of this? Get a little chili on them biscuits. Ooh, yeah.
I'm learning all of this stuff brand new. That's why I'm doing this. Like, I love learning new stuff. I love doing something different every day. And yet, a lot of the times, I find myself in the midst of this, frustrated beyond all belief. And so I think I struggle with knowing long term doing something different every day is what I want to do. But like in the moment, I'm just like frustrated because things aren't going right and I don't know what I'm doing. You know, it's like this weird dichotomy of over the long term, it makes me really happy. In the moment, I'm super frustrated.
Whoa.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I need to remind myself, we all need to remind ourselves that making mistakes, for the most part, are not life and death.
No, except for, you know what? Our dinghy wrapped around our prop.
And that we're all here to learn. We're all here to go through this world and make it a better place and soak up as much experience and knowledge as we can. And I need to not beat myself up over trying something out and having it not work, because that's part of this whole experience. That's part of why I want to do this. That's part of life. That's part of learning. I don't really know how to put it, because I know all of these things, but I think in the moment, what I feel worst about when I make mistakes is just dragging other people through it with me. So like Scott, our patron, having spent all afternoon with him, and I gotta look at that as it's not the product that we created. It was the time that we spent together. We both learned things in the process. And so even if this final product doesn't work, it's not like that whole afternoon we spent was wasted. It was still a very enjoyable time, and we learned things. And I think that's what I struggle with, is I feel like I waste people's time. You know, like it's okay if I waste my time, and sometimes I get really frustrated even with that. You know, if we're paying to be at a slip and I try to do a new project and completely fail and have to wait for shipping or whatever. So I guess I just need to continue to look for the positives in every experience and remember that the experience itself is worth living regardless of whether or not I screwed up. So I just need to look beyond that and focus on what I can do in the future. And I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna hang this up.
I like my whiskey without a chase. You think that drinking's a sin, but we've been brothers since we were 8. So let's have a toast with tea.
Oh, beautiful morning to get underway.
Power sorted.
Take care.
Thanks, Scott. Bye. Oh yeah, we couldn't have had a better morning.
That was one of the harder places to leave. Yeah.
Not physically.
No, that was easy. That was very easy. It's like we got 3 knots of wind. Perfectly calm.
Beautiful morning.
Yeah. But Scott was such a great host.
Yeah, he was.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Keep your feet on the ground. I like to be up here on the stage, strumming these strings to make a sound. You think the world's round as
Okay.
It is April 2021 and we are in the Florida Keys.
And a lot has happened since our last episode, and there is somebody we'd like to introduce to you.